In this exercise, we are going to discover a new tool, which is the perspective grid tool. We are going to start with this image as a reference, and we will end up with this illustration. Create new, but this time I'm gonna choose 2000 for the width and 2000 for the height. I click on create. File, place, exercise 9. I click on the image, check template, and place. Now I'm gonna zoom a little bit like this, and I'm gonna click here, perspective grid tool. I click, I see this grid. I'm gonna make some adjustments. I'm gonna take this point, I click and drag, I take it right here. I'm gonna click on this point and take it right here, and make sure this is in the middle of the building, and this also. Now I'm gonna click on this point and move the grid like this until it matches the building right here, until the line matches the building right here. And I'm gonna do the same thing here. I click on this point and I drag until the grid matches the building from the other side, and also this point goes back to the middle like this. This is the most important step of this exercise, setting up the grid correctly. Now I can start drawing the illustration. I'm gonna click on rectangle tool. I'm gonna set the stroke to none, set the fill to this shade of red, the dark red. I make sure I click on left grid on the cube here. I place the cursor right here using the rectangle tool, and I create a rectangle like this, about this size. And make sure I match the drawing. Now select, deselect. I'm gonna choose this shade of gray, the gray in the middle here. I'll place the cursor right here, and I'm gonna draw a gray rectangle like this. Now select, deselect. I'm gonna click here on the other side, right grid. I'm gonna choose this shade of red. I place the cursor right here with the rectangle tool, and I'm gonna create another rectangle like this, about this size. I'll let go. Select, deselect. I'm gonna choose the same shade of gray I used earlier. I place the cursor right here, and I'm gonna create a gray rectangle like this. Now selection tool, I'm gonna click on this red part. I'm gonna create a shadow effect. I click on color guide. I click here, set base color to the current color like this. I'm gonna choose shades. Here we have our color. I'm gonna choose a darker shade like this one, like this. And I'm gonna do the same thing with the gray part. I click on the gray, and I'm gonna choose a darker shade of gray. Now we just created the shadow effect. Imagine the light coming from here. Now I'm gonna continue. I click away. I go back to rectangle tool. I'm gonna click here, right grid. I go back. I'm gonna select this rectangle, swap fill and stroke. Select, deselect. I go to rectangle tool and make sure the right grid, you click on the right grid. Now I'm gonna choose the black fill for the rectangle and I'm gonna draw a rectangle like this. This is the door of the building, like this, and I let go. Now I can go back to this rectangle and click on swap fill and stroke again. We get this result. Now rectangle tool again, I'm gonna choose this gray color. This time I'm gonna click on horizontal grid like this. I place the cursor right here and I'm gonna draw the alley like this, and I let go. I'm gonna click here, left grid. I'm gonna choose this red color. I'm gonna choose the darker shade I used for this part of the wall, the same color, this dark shade of red, and I place the cursor right here. Of course, make sure left grid is selected, and I'm gonna draw a small rectangle, a little bit thick. This is the wall, and now I'm gonna select these parts like this. I'll go to shape builder tool. I'm gonna choose the red color, same color as this wall, and I'm gonna click right here. And now, as you see, it looks fine. It looks like a 3D building, and this is the door. I'm gonna continue. Rectangle tool. I'm gonna go back to horizontal grid. I'm gonna choose a darker shade of gray, this shade of gray, and I'm gonna continue the alley like this. Make sure I match the other alley like this. And now I'm gonna do the same thing. I click on this part, shift and select this part, or I can simply select them like this, and shape builder tool. I'm gonna choose the same red color. I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna select these parts, shape builder tool. I click on the red color, the same red as this wall, and I'm gonna paint this part to hide it in a way, and now we get this result. I'm gonna zoom out. Now I'm gonna click here. I'm gonna choose the ellipse tool and click here, no active grid. Now we leave the grid completely. If I draw shapes now, I can draw them normally like this. As you see, I don't draw them on the grid. Control Z to go back. Here's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna choose the green color. I'm gonna choose the ellipse, and I'm gonna draw an ellipse like this. This way. I right click, arrange, and click on send to back. Now I'm gonna click on the gradient window. I'm gonna apply gradient, a radial gradient. I click here, double click. I'm gonna select this shade of green, double click here, and I'm gonna choose a dark shade of green, and you'll get this result. Now I'm gonna choose the pen tool. I'm gonna choose the black color. Control C to go back. I have to deselect. I choose the black color like this, and now I'm gonna draw a path like this. Click here, I click here and I close the path. I'm gonna set the opacity to 50% like this. Now we have the shadow of the building. Now I'm gonna select both these parts, shape builder tool, and I'm gonna press Alt and delete this part. I'm gonna select these two parts. I'm gonna do the same thing, press Alt and delete this small part. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add some windows here on this wall and windows here also. So I'm gonna choose the rectangle tool. I'm gonna choose this blue color for the fill. Now Control Z. I have to deselect. I'm gonna zoom here. Of course, make sure no active grid is selected. I'm not drawing on the grid. Rectangle tool. I'm gonna choose this blue color for the fill and this shade of gray for the stroke, like this. Now I'm gonna draw a rectangle like this, about this size. About this size, I think this looks good. Now the line segment tool, I'm gonna draw a line here. Go to selection tool, press Alt. I'm gonna duplicate a line here. Press Alt again, and I'm gonna duplicate, create another line right here. I'm gonna select everything, press Alt, and I'm gonna duplicate the window right here. And I'm gonna change the stroke color from this to this. I'm gonna choose a darker shade like this. I go back to this part, this rectangle. I'm gonna click on draw inside, pen tool. I'm gonna choose white for the fill and none for the stroke, like this. And here's what I'm gonna do. The reflection of the light on the window, just like this. Shapes like this. Now, selection tool, I'm gonna double click outside. Now I leave the draw inside mode. I go back to draw normal. I'm gonna select all these parts, right click, group. I'm gonna do the same thing here, right click and group. Now I'm gonna put this window on this wall. I'm gonna do that using this tool, perspective selection tool. I click, I make sure I click on the right grid. I click on this window right here and click and drag, and I'm gonna put the window right here. Now, as you see, the window is on the wall. I can change the size if I want to, like this. I can adjust. And now I'm gonna duplicate the window several times. I'm gonna press Alt and I'm gonna duplicate like this. I'm gonna Control D to repeat the same action, Control D and Control D. We get 5 windows like this. Now I'm gonna do the same thing with this. I click, I'm gonna click here, left grid first, it's very important. I put the cursor right here, click and drag, and I'm gonna put it right here. Make sure it's on the same level as the other window, right, like this. Now, I'm gonna move it a little bit. Gonna make it longer like this, about this size. Gonna zoom even more for more precision. I think this is fine. Now, I'm gonna press Alt, put the cursor right here, press Alt, and I'm gonna duplicate like this. Put the other window right here. And when I make it once, I can Control D and repeat the same action just like this. Last thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add some trees right here. But first, I'm gonna hide the grid tool. It's very simple. I just have to click here on the cross, hide grid, and just like that, the grid is gone. If I want to bring it back, I can change the tool and go back to perspective grid, and the grid is back. I can either do that, or I can click on view, go to perspective grid, and then click on hide. I can bring it back like this, view, perspective grid, and click on show grid. I'm going to open the symbols window. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to open the nature library selection tool. I'm going to drag and drop the trees here, and I'm going to select the other tree and drag and drop right here. Now I can hide the template, I no longer need it. And now the exercise is finished. You go do the same and don't forget to save.